There's a device that I've been using called a Whoop.
Hello and welcome back to IGOW6. I'm your host, Dan Sugano, aka Skittles, and in this video we're going to be covering IGOW6 Preseason Challenge number 7, that's the VCI Trippy spins. And helping out with this challenge is IGOW's resident wonky nips expert, Heads of Infinity Loops. The Trippy spin is probably more accurately referred to as an inverted orbit or a reverse orbit, but in the current meta, if you say Trippy spin, then 99% of FPV pilots will understand what maneuver you're talking about. So that's what we'll be going with here in IGOW6. This week, the game rule that I want to highlight is also the main point of focus, and that is the way that Trippy spins are judged here in the international game of Whoop. I will include some visuals I made way back in the first season of IGOW to help show what I'm talking about. For all challenges involving a Trippy spin around an obstacle, you must keep the obstacle at the top of your FPV view for the entire rotation. Now, this does not mean that you just instantly fail if the obstacle ever dips down to the side of your FPV view during your Trippy spin. Rather, you just have to make sure that you get at least a full rotation around the obstacle with it at the top. You are allowed to take as many rotations as necessary to lock in on the obstacle and have it at the top of your FPV view for a full 360 degrees. Okay, keeping that in mind, let's go over the goals for IGOW6 Preseason Challenge number 7, the VCI Trippy spins. Goal 1 is to perform one cradle in each direction around any obstacle. This trick has many names, including a past IGOW favorite, Forgot My Keys. But the cradle is the most common name. These aren't going to be heavily scrutinized during the judging, but the idea is that you pitch back as you pass by in such a way that you're looking back at the obstacle as you go around it and transition into flying backwards on the other side. You don't want your cradles to look like you just flew past the obstacle, then hit the brakes to fly backwards around the other side. Goal 2 is to perform an open Trippy for at least 2 full rotations. For the open Trippy, you don't have to have any obstacle that you're actually going to rotate around. You just need to perform the Trippy spin motion while looking up at anything as a point of reference. Goal 3 is to perform one Trippy spin of each direction around any obstacle. Again, you must keep the obstacle at the top of your FPV view for at least 1 full rotation of each direction. And this week, there's also a bonus goal that takes this trick to the next level, and that is to perform a combo of a Trippy spin and then a Trippy rewind into another Trippy spin the opposite direction. This entire combo must be done while keeping your drone in the inverted orientation. The judging for this challenge is going to be focused on the Trippy spins. As I explained at the top of the video, the main point of focus is that you must keep the obstacle at the top of your FPV view for at least a full rotation during your Trippy spin. The next point of focus is a little bit redundant, and that is that you complete a full 360 degree rotation in all of your Trippy spins. If you come up even a little bit short of a full rotation during the regular season challenge, that would be considered a fail. So I always suggest going for at least a little extra, maybe a half rotation or so you make sure that you're safe. The final point of focus is only for the bonus goal, and that is that during your Trippy rewind, when you're switching Trippy directions, the obstacle cannot drop all the way down to the bottom of your FPV view. Now, you are allowed to have it dip down to the side of your screen during that direction switch, but not all the way down to the bottom of the screen, basically like you're flipping back over and getting out of the inverted position. All right, so before we get into the tutorial section, I want to talk about this challenge's title sponsor, VCI, aka Vulcan Innovations. The name Vulcan draws inspiration from Greek mythology, where the god Hephaestus was known for his extraordinary craftsmanship and was the god of fire, forging, and stonemasonry. He is hailed as the forefather of artisans and renowned for his mastery of creating various weapons and metal goods with unparalleled skill. VCI's aspiration is to emulate the spirit of the mythical Vulcan by continually delivering high-quality products much like the enduring flames of life force. The VCI team boasts over 10 years of valuable OEM experience in the UAV motor manufacturing field. VCI specializes in products in 3 major categories: motors, cinelifters, and fixed-wing solutions. Their motor models are incredibly diverse, and their product customization services are executed with a high degree of professionalism. Learn more at vcihobby.com. Okay, now let's get into the tutorial section of the video. Heads has explained how to perform a trippy spin many times before on the Infinity Loops channel and in past IGOW challenges. And he tells me that he's almost done with a super comprehensive video that not only teaches how to perform a trippy spin, but also is going to cover everything that you could ever want to know about the history of the trick and the name trippy spin. So be sure to subscribe to the Infinity Loops channel to be notified when that video drops. The visualization section is going to start with a quick cameo from Callisto demonstrating the Cradle maneuver, and then Heads is going to take over and teach all of the trippy spin stuff.
For the Cradle maneuver, or the whoop-de-doo, or the forgot my keys, whatever you want to call it, you fly. What you do is you fly on one side of an obstacle, keeping your orientation forward, and then flying around the obstacle, and then backwards around the other side of it. The cleanest way to do this is to try to keep the obstacle in view the entire time. So what you have to do is flying on the one side of it, pitching back, slightly turning, keeping the object in view, and then cradling around it, coming backwards. And that's a cradle.
An inverted orbit, or trippy spin, is the same as just a normal orbit around a point of interest. You just are inverted. So the way that I like to think about this is you're kind of think about doing a turn backwards, really sharp like that. It doesn't sound too crazy if you're flying in one direction and you flip your nose up like that and spin around a turn to go the other way. That makes sense. Now, if I keep my direction and I get it locked in right, I'm just still making a turn. It's just that turn is just now in a nice perfect orbit, and I'm locked around an object. I focus on my camera, and what I'm focusing on is keeping my point of interest at the very top of my FPV feed. So while I'm orbiting, all I'm seeing, my camera is just looking straight up, and all I'm seeing is the top of the object, and I'm focusing on keeping it locked in the top of my screen. All right, boys. Now, to get us started, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to try it out in the simulator. And I recommend this for almost any trick. If you've never done it before, it's a lot easier to reset in the simulator as opposed to in real life having to get up and fetch your whoop every time you crash in the grass and can't turtle out of it. And the other thing is that, you can run into the pole 1,000 times in the simulator, and you're not going to have to replace any props or frames or anything like that. So it's always a good idea to kind of get your finger movements down and get that muscle memory close in the simulator, and then go out into the real world and try it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Zero Grav Redshifter's frame. This is actually one that I fly quite a bit in real life, so that should be good. Okay, so we're just going to go try getting into a basic trippy spin around... I guess that's the only one, is this one over here. So we'll just do it around this tower here. So I'm going to approach, and then just like I was showing you by hand, you just kind of, the way I get into it at least, you can get into it any way you want really, but as I just kind of rotate around, and it just makes it look a little extra trippy getting into it. But you can see my stick movements down there. My throttle is way up to hold myself up. And my yaw is very little. I'm just kind of kissing with the yaw just to kind of correct my direction and my rotations. And my pitch and roll is kind of... The pitch is not as important as it is the roll. You can change your elevation by changing your pitch. So I can pitch up a little bit and I'll come up some. And I can pitch a little further out, down, and drop some. So that's not very clean, but you get what I'm saying there.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Heads from Infinity Loops here to walk you through your IGOW challenge for this week, trippy spins. So the first challenge that Skittles is going to have you do is an open trippy spin, meaning you really just need to get the spinning motion looking up or backwards and up. You don't have to do it around any object or anything. What I try to do actually is just pick something above me. There's actually a flag I have in my garage here that I can show you a clip of. I do trippy spins underneath that sometimes. You really just want something to focus on or put in the camera lens so that everybody can tell what you're doing while you're doing the trippy spin. I've even used clouds. If I could just find a cloud above me, if I'm outdoors, you can just do a trippy spin while you're looking at a cloud. Open air trippy spins are probably best practiced just by doing trippy spins first. The second part of the challenge is to do a trippy spin around a vertical object. So you could use something like a tree if it's tall enough and use the canopy of the tree as your point of interest, or you could use something like a very tall light in a parking lot. Usually the ones that have the 2 arms reaching out or 4 are easier to use than if it just has 1 arm reaching out. It can kind of get a little lopsided sometimes. That really comes down to your level of flying ability. And the third challenge is to do 2 trippy spins in one direction, reverse, and do trippy spins in the opposite direction. This is where things get a little more complicated. We're not just doing a trippy spin anymore. Now we have to stop all of our momentum of spinning one direction and flip it back the other way without actually stopping, going level, or doing anything crazy. You just need to make a quick adjustment and go right back the other direction. Now there is a trick to this, and that is that when you're doing the trippy spins and you need to make that stop to switch back the other way, normally when you're doing a trippy spin, you have your point of interest kind of right at the top of your view in your goggles. When I go to do the reverse to go back the other direction, what I like to do is overturn, so where my point of interest will go around my screen almost to the side, sometimes even to the side, maybe even almost down to the bottom, and then bounce back the other direction. Now the reason I overturn and let the point of interest go so far down is I'm letting my quad go way past the turn of where it needs to be, so I can kind of slingshot myself back the other direction and keep all of that momentum stored up from when you kind of cock back and flick back the other direction. This helps to provide a clean transition between the 2 directions of trippy spins without one appearing to be a little faster than the second one, or vice versa. Just being able to keep everything nice and locked in smooth. That's the cleanest way that I've found to do it without adding any flips, rolls, going level, nothing. Just over rotation and come right back into it the other direction. Now, just some general pointers for you about trippy spins that I myself have learned over the years and that I usually would repeat to pilots that I'm trying to teach how to trippy spin. Number 1 is that your approach to the trippy spin is pretty important. You need to pick something that you're comfortable with and that kind of flows with how you fly and your camera angle. There are 2 distinct ways that I am aware of to get into a trippy spin that are simple. Now there's a bunch of different complicated ways that you can combine to get into a trippy spin. These are just kind of the simpler ways to do it. Number 1 would be my favorite, which is the stall approach, where you would fly straight towards your vertical object and you nose up stall, wait until you start to lose momentum to where you reach the apex of the stall, and then rotate around into your trippy spin. I've always found that to be a really interesting way to get into a trippy. It's a bit abrupt. It's kind of going from flat immediately into a rotation. So the second way you could enter a trippy spin that is a little smoother is with a cradle. Now a cradle, if you're unaware, is kind of like doing a U-turn around an object in your drone without actually turning the drone around. So if you're flying forward into the turn, you would leave the other side of the turn still facing that direction. A cradle is useful to enter a trippy spin because you're kind of already doing like half of a trippy or like a third of a trippy when you do a cradle to begin with. So once you've already cradled around the object, you just continue the cradle and it's a trippy spin, and there you go. So try both. Pick which way you like better, or like I said, which one kind of flows better with your camera angle. Sometimes the nose up stall is better for the lower camera angle flyers than the higher ones. Now that we have picked a comfortable way to enter the trick, we need to find out how we lock the trick in. That would be the second part of this. The best way I find to explain this is with a simple view of a stick overlay of someone doing a trippy spin and the term wonky nips. Now, if you look at the stick ends here, you can see they are inward facing and outward facing from each other when doing a trippy spin, depending on what direction you want to spin. If you overlaid those sticks over perhaps my chest, it would look like a set of wonky nips. So the term stuck, wonky nips. Something to think about while you're doing trippy spins is that if your left stick is tilted in and up a bit, your right stick will likely be tilted in and up a bit. Unlike an orbit where we find ourselves with both sticks in the same direction, with a inverted orbit, we're going to invert that and make the sticks go in the opposite direction. Now, if you manage to do the first and second challenge and you go to take on the third, here's a good pointer for you. If you find yourself able to spin in a trippy one direction very easily and the other direction not as easy, do the not as easy version first, and then when you do your switchy, it's easier to get into the one that your fingers naturally feel more comfortable at. Some people, it's like left and right turns, left and right split S's. It's left and right trippies. Some people prefer to the left to start, some people prefer to the right. Doesn't really matter. If you're doing the last challenge, I always suggest starting with the one you're weaker at first, because the switch into the weaker spin is way harder than the switch into the one you're more comfortable with. That'll do it for me. Good luck on this week's challenge. I can't wait to see your trippy spin videos.
Let's take it outside and apply this in real life. All right, now that we've gotten plenty of practice in the simulator, we're just gonna go out to our tree up front here. And just like I was telling you how I like to get into it, just stop and flip in the opposite direction. And then focus on the tree. Focus on keeping the tree, the length of the tree, just in the top center of my camera. That's all I'm thinking about is object, top center. That's it. I'm not thinking about the direction I'm moving. I'm not thinking about really even what my sticks are doing. I'm just thinking about where is that object in my camera.
All right, IGOWers, who feels ready to do some trippy spins? Now, if you've never attempted these before in real life, I highly suggest that you practice first in the simulator. Out of all the tricks, this one is not very intuitive, and it really helps if you've already got the muscle memory for how to put your sticks when you're performing a trippy spin, and also how to adjust those sticks to adjust the trippy spin as it kind of gets off course or something, as will happen in real life when there's wind and other elements that you don't encounter always in the sim. So the more you're familiar with exactly how to adjust your trippy spin and how to switch between the trippy spins and everything about the trippy spin, the more successful you'll be when you go out and actually try it in real life. All right, good luck and happy whooping.